Okay, so are we good to go? As far as quorum, I mean, are we good to go?
Yes, and then as soon as you're ready, Matt, you can begin recording. Thank you.
For some reason, I'm having a hard time hearing Angela.
Me too.
I heard her, but she was speaking very softly.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, we're ready to go. So good evening and welcome to the December 1st, 2021 SFO Airport Community
Recording in
Roundtable.
progress.
Let me try that again. Good evening and welcome to the December 1st, 2021 SFO Airport Community Roundtable. We are calling the meeting to order. It's 7:01 p.m. We are meeting via Zoom, and joining us today for the roundtable staff are Angela Montes, Roundtable Administrative Secretary, Janet Lujan, Executive Secretary, San Mateo County Planning Department, Michelle Rodriguez, our Roundtable Coordinator, Jean Rydell, Aviation Technical Consultant for HMMH. We also have Linda Wallner from Senior Aide from the Supervisor Dave Pine, and Bert Gannog from the San Francisco Airport Noise Abatement Manager. And then we do have our friends from the FAA and a few other people that I'm not going to list at this point. So at this point, Ms. Montes, would you please explain how the public can participate in tonight's meeting? Angela, I don't
Thank
hear
you, Chairman Ortiz. For those attending the meeting on the Zoom video conference, we will use the raise hand feature in order to organize any public comment. During the general public comment periods, I will ask those members of the public who wish to comment to click the raise hand feature to speak on that agenda item. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. When you hear your name called, I will prompt you to unmute your microphone and inform you that you may begin speaking. You will have 2 minutes. And I hope that my audio was a little better there.
Much better. Did everybody hear her okay?
Yeah.
Very good. And with that then, we can move on to roll call. Is that Ms. Rodriguez? Is that who's doing the roll call? Or is it Ms. Montes?
Ms. Rodriguez.
Very good.
Taking a quorum vote, roll call. City and County of San Francisco Board of Supervisor. No response. City and County of San Francisco Mayor's Office. No response. City and County of San Francisco Airport Commission.
Good evening, Ivar.
Thank you. San Mateo County Board of Supervisors is absent. CCAG Airport Land Use Commission is absent. Town of Atherton.
Here.
Thank you. City of Belmont.
Tom McEwen, present for Belmont.
Thank you. City of Brisbane.
Terry O'Connell, present.
Thank you. City of Burlingame.
That's Ricardo Ortiz here.
Thank you. City of Daly City.
Pamela DiGiovanni, present.
Thank you. City of Foster City.
Sam Hindi here.
Thank you. City of Half Moon Bay. No response. Town of Hillsborough.
Al Royce, present.
Thank you. City of Menlo Park. She's absent. City of Millbrae. No response. City of Pacifica.
Here, Mike O'Neill.
Thank you. Town of Portola Valley.
Jeff Alves, present.
Thank you. City of Redwood City.
Jeff G, present.
Thank you. City of San Bruno.
Tom Hamilton, present.
Thank you. City of San Carlos.
John Dugan here.
Thank you. City of San Mateo. No response. City of South San Francisco.
Mark Adiego here.
Thank you. Town of Woodside.
John Carvel here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Michelle. And with that, then we will move on to public comment. Ms. Montes, I'll hand it back to you. And as a reminder, I'm sorry, before we do that, a reminder to members of the public, this is the public comment that's for items that are not on the agenda. We do have a number of items that I think are very popular on the agenda, so I'm going to ask that you wait till that item comes up, and so I will interrupt you if that is what you're discussing. So with that, now let's go to Ms. Montes.
Thank you, Chairman. And I would just like to remind the membership that we did receive 7 written public comments on items not on the agenda. Those were posted on the website and circulated via email. And I would like to remind anybody that is calling by phone that you may press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. But I do not see any virtual hands raised at the moment for items not on the agenda.
Very good. I'll give it just a moment more to make sure that there are no public comments. And having none, then we will move on to action item to set the agenda and approve the consent item. So I'll entertain a motion to set the agenda and approve the consent calendar.
I will second Terry O'Connell.
So I'm sorry, I did not see who was the motion.
Widmer.
Widmer makes a motion and O'Connell is second. Roll call, please, Michelle.
Thank you. City and County of San Francisco Airport Commission.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Aye.
Well, thank you. Town of Atherton.
Aye.
Thank you. City of Belmont.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Brisbane.
Aye.
Thank you. City of Burlingame.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Daly City.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Foster City.
Yes.
Thank you. Town of Hillsborough.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Pacifica.
Yes.
Thank you. Town of Portola Valley.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Redwood City.
Yes.
Thank you. City of San Bruno.
Aye.
Thank you. City of San Carlos.
Yes.
Thank you. City of South San Francisco.
Yes.
Thank you. Town of Woodside.
Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to recognize that Ann Schneider has now participated in the meeting, and I don't know if she has a vote on this item.
Michelle, I'm here. I'm yes for everything except the director's report. That is a no.
Thank
I was
you.
stuck out in the other room.
Thank you. Your motion passes, and we should now, with that approval, recognize the acceptance of membership of the town of Colma. Welcome, Council Member John Irish Goodwin. They will participate at their first meeting, our first meeting in February 2nd, 2022. And meanwhile, staff will send them an invoice to become a member, and we'll send them a new member packet and do an introduction with the chair. Thank you for that.
Right. Thank you, Michelle, and welcome to Colma. We're very pleased to have you, and that leaves us with one left in San Mateo County, so we'll chase after them. So thank you with that, and with that, we move on to our regular agenda. Talking about membership expansion, we had a subcommittee formed to consider the expansion of allowing Palo Alto or other communities into the roundtable. We had a number of meetings and came up with a recommendation. So I will pass it on to Michelle Rodriguez again to share the information. Michelle, you're muted.
I'll go ahead and share my screen, and I want to share with you a presentation that was developed by the subcommittee for the public meeting. Since the public meeting occurred, it's been updated to just reflect their discussion at that meeting and their final recommendation. Here we go. The following is the membership expansion ad hoc subcommittee recommendation to the roundtable. Several roundtable members volunteered to participate, and the officers of the roundtable, which includes your chair and vice chair, appointed members to reflect a balance between the north, central, and southern portion of the roundtable member cities. So you can see the subcommittee members and composition here. At subcommittee meeting 1 on August the 25th, our agenda included a review of the purpose and schedule. We received member constituent comments. We reviewed historical service area and then tried to identify and prioritize key issues. So the purpose and deliverables of that subcommittee was to establish criteria under which new members might be admitted to the roundtable and evaluate funding needs to address ongoing operations, potential expanded membership, and other related issues. The deliverables was to be this recommendation to your membership on membership expansion, related funding requirements to meet expected operational requirements. And so at that meeting, we received and discussed both member constituent feedback as well as non-member feedback. And so under member constituent feedback, the members felt that of the subcommittee felt that by expanding membership, it would take focus away from the communities close to the airport, that we've looked at this topic multiple times and have made decisions against it in the past. There was a concern about a dilution of resources and priorities, and that we had an obligation to our existing membership, that existing operations had additional staffing and resource needs. And I think that this focused a lot on your standing subcommittees and the need for increased number of meetings or expanding the length of those meetings. And we have current work to accomplish for existing members. Ground-based noise and other pending member issues should be addressed first. And the time and effort to add new members takes away from important work and our staffing resources. At that point, we had received no municipal requests to join. And so there was some question about why are we diverting at this time, staff time and effort. And so the non-member feedback that we discussed was that the more members on the roundtable, the better, the more contribution to issues, but that the size would become unwieldy. How impacted are non-member counties? There was a question about which airports were actually contributing to the impact and the fact that we needed maps to review or some more information. And wasn't Santa Cruz County as impacted as Santa Clara County? And are we considering to expand for individual cities, counties, or a region? And what were the funding options for new members? And how does this relate to existing operational needs? And we discussed options for greater participation by non-member participants versus membership and options there. We discussed the select committee arrival path over Palo Alto being a regional issue and a multiple airport issue. And we discussed non-member support communications, including the 3 emails from Darlene Yapley on June 1st, the 22nd, and August 23rd, as well as the Congresswoman Eshu's support letter for expanded membership, which has been sent to each of you. Our service review, we reviewed the formation of this roundtable and the one-time expansion to address the impacts from the airport expansion at that time. There was a request for staff and the consultants to develop a flight density map before and after the select committee to better understand the SFO airport and the combined SFO, Oakland, and San Jose flight path densities. We discussed the need for a regional airspace entity, and we discussed our ABAG and MTC meeting with myself, where we discussed their interest in hosting a number of meetings on regional flight path issues, but they really wanted to have a defined topics that would be addressed and clarity around who would be attending that meeting and what was the expected outcomes. We discussed San Mateo County's contribution in terms of the membership fee that they pay to us, our staff services costs that we pay to them, as well as the costs that are not charged to us, including the IT, attorney costs, upper management costs, and finance department costs. We discussed staffing resource needs for standing committees and the need for more attention on certain topics such as ground-based noise, alternative metrics, implementation of night hush, and Gbass. We discussed Congresswoman Anna Eshu's letter, as well as the SCSC history, purpose, and their status. At that time, no letter had been received from the city of Palo Alto or other non-member cities. And we discussed adding new members. What were the options? Single city, multi-city, multi-county, one county, and how would that effectively operate and be done? We discussed the appropriateness of any one single jurisdiction having multiple roundtable memberships. And we discussed in detail the 6 requests from the city of Palo Alto for membership, as well as the past issues that we considered and the reasons for denial. We discussed the pros and cons of membership, budget, thought leadership, regional airspace, MOU modification, and noise mitigation exclusion. And in conclusion, the 3 large topics that came from that was that from an expanding membership standpoint, we felt that it took away from addressing noise effects to communities close to the airport, and that with limited staff resources, and that we'd like to focus on the strategic plan and work plan priorities, that we should focus on existing membership from the standpoint of what are the increased staff time and resource needs to meet what the roundtable would like to have achieved, and that we should encourage the 2 towns, East Palo Alto and the town of Colma, to join the roundtable, and that it's a regional flight issue. There's a need for regional airplane noise effect discussions and solutions, and that SFO arrivals affects multiple counties, not just a city. So at meeting number 2 on September the 29th, we did the flight path review and we discussed member equity. From a flight path standpoint, we reviewed 10 different maps comparing 2013 to 19 flight track density for the Bay Area, which was a combined San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose map for both side-by-side comparison for departure and arrival, comparing 2013 and 2019, and then San Francisco only side-by-side comparison for departure and arrival for that same period. Our findings were that regarding the San Francisco airport operations arrival only, that our members were having significant impacts. That San Mateo, Burlingame, Foster City went from a medium density to a high density. That San Bruno, Pacific, and Hillsborough went from no density to low density. Redwood City and Menlo Park went from low to high. San Francisco went from low to medium high. And from a non-member standpoint, that multiple areas were affected: Oakland, San Jose, Santa Clara County, Marin, Contra Costa County, and that we looked specifically at Palo Alto and Mountain View, that Palo Alto had stayed from high to high, no change, that there was one area that went from low to medium high, and for Mountain View, no change. From the San Francisco airport operations departure level, from a membership standpoint, San Bruno, Millbrae, and Hillsborough went from medium high to a broader area of that medium high. South San Francisco went from medium high to high. Daly City went from medium to medium high. And there were a new offshore area that went from medium high to high, and a new procedure through the Golden Gate Bridge, which created some medium high noise offshore for Daly City and San Francisco. From a non-member standpoint, departures affected Contra Costa County as well as Alameda County, and Palo Alto went from low to low and an area, a small area of low to medium. Mountain View had a low and impact area from a very small, I guess it was a municipal airport just north of them that was creating low medium. One of the comments that we heard at the public review meeting was that these flight density maps did not address decibel levels. And so I will say to you that following that meeting, I got the airport noise monitoring reports from SFO staff. And of course, this includes, we're looking at noise event thresholds of 52 dB during the day and 50 dBA at night. And what we can say is that from an aircraft CNEL standpoint, our member cities, such as Burlingame and Millbrae, exceeded that threshold, and Palo Alto did not. That from an LMAX standpoint, our member cities had numbers up in almost 80, 77 and 80, whereas Palo Alto was down at 60. And then finally, I'll say just from a plane height standpoint that Daly City had heights up to, between 2,500 to 6,000 feet, whereas Palo Alto had between up to 5,000 feet. So we have since had a chance to look at that information. And going on to subcommittee meeting to equity discussion, we discussed equity from a member standpoint and a non-member standpoint. From the perspective of the subcommittees, the equity is representation of members inside the 65 CNEL contour because of the significant effect or the noise event threshold that I mentioned. We need to address existing member noise effects such as ground-based noise, adequate noise metrics, and noise mitigation. And we reviewed the Congresswoman Spears letter of September the 29th, which was not in support of membership expansion. From a non-member equity standpoint, the subcommittee discussed that non-members feel impacted by airport noise, and they don't feel that they have a viable and credible way to address their concerns. And they feel that the San Francisco Roundtable is a viable and effective at addressing noise, and that the SCSC Roundtable's ongoing operation at that time is unclear. And staff did update the subcommittee about its current decision to stop operation at the end of December. They felt that that those non-member cities can and do provide their own input about noise directly to the FAA, to SFO staff, the NAC, to two roundtables, as well as able to afford their own aviation consultant. I think there was some question about how to harness the knowledge base, their experiences, and advocacy, and that continues to remain unclear. The conclusion was that next-gen narrowing of pathways originally might have been brought up by Santa Cruz County and Santa Cruz City of Santa Cruz, and so should we be discussing this with them? The conclusion was that member cities are clearly affected by next-gen, and that we should focus on our existing and updated work plan, our staffing resource needs related to our member noise effects. But there is a concern that the Gbass project may further affect flight density, that there's regional arrival and departure noise effects beyond the scope and role of this roundtable, that members inside the 65 CNEL contour are impacted significantly, and that some flight path issues are regional and affect multiple counties. The conclusion from an equity standpoint is that we should focus on our purpose, values, and member cities, focus more fully on existing standing subcommittee work and member issues, and that we should recognize that there is a need for a regional roundtable, and that we are not that regional roundtable, but that we may participate in regional air discussions, and that the SCSC roundtable was organized for South Bay counties with a distinct role and responsibility, and that role is not the San Francisco roundtable role and responsibilities. We discussed a number of communications received in opposition to expansion. I mentioned the Spears letter, and then there was a number of letters, to I think 10 letters that we received from folks in Hillsborough, Burlingame, and San Mateo. And then we discussed the requests to become members from the city of Mountain View, the Darlene Yapley communications from October 20th, the 23rd, November 5th, as well as Peter Grace's November 16th communication and Elizabeth Lopez's November 17th. On our third meeting, we discussed the recommendation to the members and discussed the public meeting content and what we wanted to do. They wanted me to complete a public presentation, which you're viewing essentially now, providing an overview of the meetings to date and a draft recommendation for public feedback. We did want to include in the final recommendation, which is included in your staff report, the need for more staff time and some options there to meet existing member demands. They wanted me to approach the town of Coleman, East Palo Alto, which I've been working on, and express support for South Bay Roundtable and regional airspace entity. So on subcommittee meeting 4 on November the 24th, we gave this presentation. We received a number of communications, as you can see before you, in opposition of expansion and in support of expansion. We discussed the subcommittee members, not supposed to be north, south, center, south, south, and their June 2nd vote on whether they were at that time supportive of initiating this subcommittee process to create criteria for expansion, and their current vote. So you can see that side-by-side comparison. And then we heard from subcommittee members about the process and why they were voting the way that they were. And I think I think I should ask the chair now, do you want me to review these, or shall we just go to the final conclusion and
Let's just move on to the final
members,
conclusion.
speak for themselves?
This
good.
this has been a pretty heavy presentation, so I think it'd be good if we move it along.
Right. And so the recommendation is no amendment to the existing MOU. Continue to focus on the existing member communities the most affected by significant noise exposure. Encourage the formation of a regional roundtable. Update the next work plan and budget to address the level of service demand that you'd like to see, and encourage the SCSC roundtable to continue to flourish to address South Bay counties. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Michelle, for all the hard work. That was a great presentation. And I want to thank the subcommittee members. We spent a lot of time, and I think there was a pretty sincere effort in reviewing the merits of this request. And with that, I'd like to open it up to any of the members of the subcommittee who would like to comment. We did not read the comments that they had written down. So any members of the subcommittee that wish to make the comments, just kind of explaining a little bit of their thought process. And I don't see any raised hands. So with that, I think staff, I think Michelle has explained it pretty well. We really did spend a lot of time reviewing all the issues and trying to figure out if this made sense. And I think we've arrived at a pretty good recommendation. So with that, now we can open it to members of the public to see if we have any members of the public who wish to comment on this item.
Thank you, Chairman. I do see Member Schneider's hands raised. I also saw Terry's hand go up for a second, but I'm not sure if you want to go back.
Oh, let me go to Member O'Connell because she was a member of the subcommittee. And so if you have something to say, I'd love to hear it.
I put my hand down because I was just going to say that I think we should hear from the public before any conclusion statements should be made by the members.
Very good. Thank you for that. And Member Schneider, your hand is up. Do you wish to comment now, or do you want to wait till after the public comment?
Comment now. It has to do with one of the 2 pages of the slides.
Okay, please.
So I think it was from your meeting number 1, and it talked about the mapping that you've done. That seems really intriguing. I haven't attended any of these meetings, but I wonder when you looked at any of the mapping of flights, if you did alternate flow days or any of the alternate flights, because lately alternate flight paths have been happening in perfectly good weather. And that's when either 19 or 1 are used and the planes are directly over Millbrae, a portion of Burlingame and Hillsborough.
I really don't have an answer to that.
I think
Michelle, do you have? an answer?
Jean should be answering map questions since HMMH created them.
Sure, I can answer that. We looked at a full year of flight track data and we put it all together. So we didn't separate out the opposite flow days from the normal flow days. So it was all in there, but it's a density. We use density maps, which showed the predominant flight paths, which would be also on the normal, non-opposite flow type configuration. So we did not pay any special attention to the opposite flow.
Thank you. It doesn't have to be tonight, but I would like to know the height or the altitude data, the way Michelle presented it for the other cities, because I'm getting all kinds of complaints from my residents of just how close those planes are to us. But that's for the future. Thank you. Nice report. Thank you, subcommittee.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, we will open it to members of the public. And again, this is for the presentation only on this item. Just a reminder, and Ms. Montes, I'll hand it to you.
Thank you, Chairman Ortiz. I do see 2 hands raised at the moment. I would like to remind everyone calling by phone that you may press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. And I will first call on Mark Scholl, followed by Liz Lopez. So give me 1 second to share my screen. Mr. Scholl?
Thank you. Mark Shaw, Palo Alto. The well-known Airport Noise and Capacity Act, ANCA, ended local control of airport noise and emissions and gave it to the FAA. But court challenges preserve the ability of airport proprietors and only airport proprietors to initiate or change arrival and departure procedures. This is defining the FAA's Aviation Noise Policy 2000, which remains in place today. This policy states, quote, where runway use, flight procedures, or air traffic changes are proposed for noise abatement reasons, the FAA relies on airport proprietors to submit requests for such changes. Consistent with this policy, the FAA does not initiate noise abatement absent an airport proprietor's request. In other words, non-airport proprietor-sponsored roundtables simply have no standing with the FAA and have no path to do anything whatsoever. This is why they don't exist anywhere else but San Francisco, where they originated as a feel-good rationalization for its county-only roundtable structure. A membership process, this roundtable has gone from accepting new members within a single meeting to a county airport-only process, to a majority member process, to a supermajority member process, and now to a closed supermajority member process. Open-mindedness is irrelevant. The process and its administration admit but a single outcome. Finally, 25 years of rejecting Palo Alto is bad enough, but please not the same ABAG recommendation you have made every time since 1997. In one of the few times the MTA and ABAG responded to this, they wrote, quote, these agencies address regional matters involving certain transportation and land use matters. With respect to aviation matters, however, neither of these agencies have any authority. They instead pointed back to the airport because, quote, airport proprietors have forums to address airport issues. After Palo Alto's 2014 rejection, ABAG did not even respond to your recommendation letter. Reject Palo Alto if you will, but recommending ABAG instead is inappropriate and amounts to salting the wound. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scholl. I will now call on Ms. Liz Lopez, followed by Darlene Yapley. Ms. Lopez?
Hi, I'm a member of SCREAM, a San Francisco residents aviation group. I was disappointed to read Representative Spears' letter saying solve the airplane noise problem for existing members before expanding the membership. And then I was further puzzled that Colma and East Palo Alto have recently become members. So this seems counter to what Spears said and also what the roundtable is claiming, in that adding new members would be unwieldy and dilute existing plans and priorities. So I'm just a little bit unclear why it's okay to have 2 new member cities, but not okay to allow like highly impacted cities who are affected by SFO into the roundtable. Another issue I see is the flight density maps that were used, because I believe there was even mentioned that there was an understanding that flight density maps by themselves or averaging altitudes. They don't capture the noise impacts to the people on the ground. This is something the community has said over and over again. And this is fundamental to understand, or the roundtable will be ineffective at solving the noise impact problems for all our impacted communities. Palo Alto, they assigned a council member for these roundtable meetings for I think about 3 years. And we should all really hope that our own cities would show that same determination and commitment to represent their residents. I've attended roundtable meetings for many years, way too many years, and have collaborated with the Palo Alto advocates. I just don't see a dilution or change in focus of the roundtable if Palo Alto was allowed to join. I see further strengthening of the roundtable's existing efforts, and that is good for all our impacted communities, whether they're near or far from the airport. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. I will now call on Ms. Darlene Yapley, followed by Ms. Rebecca Ward. Ms. Yapley?
Why are we seeking membership again? Given the harmful impacts of NextGen, we have hope that fairness, equity, and justice could prevail. The bylaws state established to address community noise concerns from SFO operations. Hope, transparencies. Attachments from the 9/29 meeting were not made public, the HMMH presentation and the population and income comparison. Hope, consistent logic, no double standards. The roundtable states don't dilute ground-based noise. Equity is representation of members inside the 65 contour. Adding members takes more resources, dilutes efforts, etc. Instead, staff approach East Palo Alto and Colma. This would add new members. Neither cities are ground-based noise or within the 65 contour. East Palo Alto has similar problems as Palo Alto, but they're being recruited, not redirected to a regional roundtable or a regional entity, and we are. Hope, use accurate data-driven approach to analyze the noise impact differences. Done correctly, this would be select criteria for new members to avoid opening the floodgates and diluting plans. Such criteria would be used, but are not. You mentioned that you want to look at alternative metrics and above, how many flights are overhead at what sound levels. The very thing that you're trying to do is what we want you to use to determine noise impacts. For example, Site 14 Monitor in San Francisco has 54 events and Site 18 in Daly City has 61 events. But the noise level of Daly City is 2x San Francisco with the same density. This is why you need to do a thorough noise impacts analysis. So what's the real issue? The issue is not letting in counties or any cities outside of San Francisco and San Mateo County. For a future process, it can be shortened and simplified by asking the congressional reps, 14 and 18 districts, to state their positions and be straightforward about your noise impact analysis. Thank you for those that support Palo Alto.
Thank you, Ms. Yapley. I will now call on Ms. Rebecca Ward, followed by phone caller ending in 204. Ms. Ward?
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to comment. Data presented to this body and to the ad hoc subcommittee clearly shows Palo Alto is severely and negatively impacted by SFO operations. During the June meeting, both the airport director and Chair Ortiz noted this. The noise and concentration of SFO arrival traffic in Palo Alto is not a regional issue. It is an SFO airport issue. Airport Director Sotero noted this in his June comments. This body has a long history of making decisions that impact Palo Alto without Palo Alto having a seat at the table. That's just not right. Adding Palo Alto as a member is not dilutive. We have the same problems as some of your members also have. And it brings available resources to the table. You talk about Palo Alto having resources. Palo Alto has said they would bring these resources to the table, so it actually strengthens the body, not weakens it. If Palo Alto is not given access to the FAA through the airport, as the previous caller noted, the options for resolving issues are much less collegial. And so I think it benefits everybody to actually have a collegial way to solve problems, and it needs to be through SFO Airport and its official roundtable body. And lastly, I'd just like to mention the subcommittee meetings. We were told that they would actually be transparent, but the meetings were held in private until you came forward with a recommendation. And so that's really not transparent. And I think in general, some of the materials weren't presented to us so that we could respond to them, like the HMMH presentation that goes with those heat density maps. So with that, I would really request that the full body think about this and think about the opportunity to add Palo Alto as a benefit, not as a negative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. I will now call on caller ending in 204. May you unmute your line and you may begin speaking. Caller ending in 204.
You may want to provide instructions to how to unmute.
The unmute is *6.
Tried. Okay.
There you go.
Mary Jo Fremont. The committee did not discuss criteria to admit new members as they were tasked to do. Instead, they reached odd conclusions. Without defining regional noise, the committee claims that Palo Alto cannot join because it has a regional issue that's beyond the scope of this roundtable. If Palo Alto has a regional noise issue, surely East Palo Alto has one too. So why is the roundtable asking East Palo Alto to join? The presentation implies that regional issues of noise outside San Francisco and San Mateo counties. If that's the case, then this roundtable should not work on any departures or arrivals, including Gbass, given that these affect other counties like Santa Clara and Alameda. Except for ground-based noise, all roundtable members have regional noise. And if regional means noise caused by more than one airport, then several roundtable members also have regional noise because they're affected by other airports like Oakland or Sao Carlos. Equity and justice were also redefined as meaning ground-based noise and 65 dB contours. Under these rules, the roundtable should have 5 members at most, if that. Committee members changing their minds because of equity and justice concern doesn't make sense. Remember what these members said about equity and justice in June. Before Jackie Spears sent a biased and misinformed letter before announcing that she won't seek re-election and before redistricting occurred. What's happening here is a narrow local version of the Republican representatives afraid of going against the party line if they censored Gosar. Rejecting Palo Alto because it's on the other side of the creek is plain discrimination. When everyone recognizes that Palo Alto is highly impacted by SFO traffic, if the logic of the committee had been followed in 1776, there would be 13 states in this country addressing the needs of the existing members. The committee is asking you to vote for a county club. Not so long ago, Jewish people, Black people, or women couldn't join clubs. You can choose to be a county club or to be a roundtable with representation of highly impacted cities. Thank you for supporting Palo Alto.
Thank you, Ms. Fremont. And with that, Chairman, I do not see any more hands raised for.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Montes. A lot of issues that were brought up that I think a lot of them were discussed, and I think there's some that there's kind of misconceptions on here. So I'm going to open it up to members of the committee again. If there's anybody who wishes to comment and maybe address some of the concerns that have been raised. I don't see any raised hands, but I'd love to hear from you guys.
Bill Widmer has his hand raised.
I'm not on the committee. I'm just a member and I'd like to make a comment when it's time.
Mr. Widmer, please go ahead. I don't have any of the committee members with their hands raised, so we'll hear you out, please.
Sure. First off, I'm a little disappointed with where we went and how we got there. First off, I'd like to thank the subcommittee for all their hard work. They had a lot of meetings and things like that. So thank you for your time and the way you looked at things. And you know, I know that you feel good about what your decision is, and I'm on the outside. However, you know, when we first talked about this, there were a number of issues that were brought up, and they were on chart 4. well, we don't have enough money because we don't have enough resources to do really what we want. Well, that can be easily solved. First off, we can charge a little bit more for being a member, or we could charge an entrance fee of a substantial amount for any new members that we choose to bring in. Secondly, I was surprised that we went out and actually recruited some people when some people were asking to be part of it, but then we had to go to Colma, for example, and make a presentation to say, please join. That just really surprised me. Now, I voted for it, and I think that they should be a member. I think East Palo Alto should be a member. But, you know, it was somewhat ironic that we did that. Secondly, one of the big things that came up from our member up at Millbrae, well, it's going to take away the focus on the people that are near the airport. Well, that could be easily managed as well. We could have come up with procedures for that and made sure that in strategic plan we covered that. However, we've got to make sure that as we're changing some of the flights or adding density to the flights in areas such as coming over Palo Alto, coming over Menlo Park, you guys keep forgetting, by the way, the 65 dB area also goes over the eastern part of Atherton, which kind of irritates me because it's right over my house and right over Lindenwood. So, you know, we need to recognize that Atherton is also included in this. You know, we're getting not only the noise, and it may not be as much as people running up their engines in the middle of the night. Okay, I give Ms. Schneider her due. However, we do have substantial amount of noise, and the density of the number of flights that come over here, based on the maps that have been shown, are continuing to get harder and harder. And they're not regional flights. There are flights that are going to San Francisco based on the maps that are presented. So I do think that, you know, there should have been a little bit more discussion on this. The Palo Alto people, who are only limited to 2 minutes, come with substantial resources and come with substantial, investigation that I think add a lot of value to the discussion here. And you know, maybe another way is to give them a little more time. You know, I don't know, maybe I need to start yielding my time all to them. But I do feel that, you know, limiting them to 2 minutes is really not giving them their due, especially with all the work they are. I will make a comment also. I don't know who wrote that letter for Jackie Spear, but she didn't write that letter. Okay, there was too much technical detail in her for her to write that letter. And I thought that it was all one-sided. It was probably written by somebody up towards the airport. And, you know, and I just don't think that was right. Whereas on the fact that ANSU wrote a letter and it was general, okay? I thought taking, you know, bringing in things like Mountain View and other places, I thought that that was a little push. But I do think that some of the issues that we brought up initially when we had our initial conversation back in June could have been very, very easily handled. And they weren't. We diverted and we went over other things. And so I'm disappointed in the output. When it comes to a vote, I'm going to vote no. If the thing is, don't let them in. And because I think it's wrong. And I'm in the same boat that they are. Our noise is getting more, there's higher density here. The communities in the South Bay, you know, we're saying here, we want to focus on the communities that are up at the airport. We're supposed to be focusing on every community. And the communities in the South Bay deserve just as much due. And I'm disappointed that we even had comments in this that says, oh, we're just going to focus on the North Bay. And so that's my comments. I appreciate you listening and putting up with my issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Widmer. I see, I think Mr. Hamilton was up next for Mr. Hamilton from San Bruno.
Thank you. Mr. Widmer covered a lot of my points, so I'll try not to be too repetitive. But the biggest question that watching the presentation was, why did we just let Colma in? If we look at the primary feedback, there were lots of different reasons presented for why we should not expand membership to include Palo Alto, and all of them, or many of them, are completely valid. But the ones that have gotten the most volume are, we are concerned about diluting our resources. We have an obligation to our existing members. We have additional staff. Where are we going to get the additional staffing and resources? There's current work to accomplish for our existing members. But then at the same time, we're going out and recruiting new members to join. I don't understand. I'm new. I've just joined this body this year. So maybe somebody can explain what am I missing between in that disconnect.
Well,
And I just want to make sure that people understand. I know that Colma is way more impacted by airport noise than Palo Alto. I know that. But I'm wondering why, if one of the criteria also is we've received no municipal requests to join, why we wouldn't wait for a municipal request to join from Colma or from East Palo Alto instead of going out and recruiting.
Okay, Mr. Hamilton, let me just kind of address that real quick. One of the concerns was that by allowing more communities, we were opening it up, and it would be very difficult to stop adding communities, because we could say that communities are impacted. And we already had I think two requests to join the roundtable. So in my mind, and I'm not going to speak for the rest of the committee members, in my mind, we needed to set a boundary and say, well, this is where we stop. At some point, we can't have just more and more communities joining, because then all those issues that we have mentioned, they become even bigger.
So Chair, so why isn't that listed as part of the feedback?
So let me finish my thought.
Please go ahead.
Otherwise it'll go away. So the reason we already have a boundary set at San Mateo County and San Francisco County. So what we're saying is not by allowing Colma in, is not we're allowing anybody in who wants it. These are people who are already within the set boundaries of the MOU. And so it's not we're saying no to Palo Alto and yes to this guy. Is no, we're accepting somebody who's already inside the determined boundaries. And so I think that's a big distinction, so that people don't get a little confused. We approach the people who were already within those boundaries. So I hope, and maybe, so now let me, are you done, Mr. Hamilton?
Well, no, I want to just quickly ask then, how do you balance the argument that adding new members dilutes our resources? We have obligations to our existing members over these other members, and the time and effort, all these things. And if we look at the individual feedback from committee members, almost every one of them used some flavor of those in their justification for their vote.
Well, once again, it's
I'm just want to ask, does adding Colma dilute our resources and priorities? It must, right?
Well, in that it shares the concerns that are similar to South San Francisco and some of the surrounding cities, probably not. But again, the discussion wasn't adding this one or not adding that one. It was expanding the boundaries or opening it up to have no boundaries is one of the kind of the question. And I think that's where the distinction is important. We weren't picking one over the other. We were,
I understand that.
Our mandate,
and it wasn't an either or type of deal.
No, it was our mandate was, do we open the borders or do we not? Or do we open the existing borders? So I hope that helps a little bit, but
it does. All I'm saying is that the using the dilution of resources argument in all of its various flavors, because it's mentioned in various flavors in several bullets, it's a really bad look to do that, especially on the same night that we approved a new member. Right. It just doesn't. It should have been much more clearly defined in the output from the subcommittee, that you were really saying that no, we're concerned with the boundary. The boundary is the county, and that's the reason that we're not going to expand.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Hamilton. And I think Mr. Alves was next.
Thank you. So I actually made the original motion to form the subcommittee, and there were two elements to that. The first was that we would establish criteria for membership expansion. And the second was we would discuss mechanisms for funding ongoing activities, in my mind, with or without membership expansion. And I'm a little concerned because none of this, to me, addresses, at least what I've heard, doesn't address either of those things, because the only criteria that I've heard is that members should be within the county, which is the original MOU area. And I thought we were discussing what would actually be a framework for deciding if, on a case-by-case basis, towns outside that boundary. And I don't hear that. And so maybe that's in there somewhere and it just isn't being communicated. I don't hear it. And the second, in terms of the resources, yes, more communities does entail more work, and it probably requires more resources. And my intention when I first made that motion was that the committee would look at not only resources for expansion, but also, do we need more resources to do the work even without expansion? Because we're now talking about adding 2 communities, not Mountain View and Palo Alto, and we're still talking. I know staff is stretched thin. I know that that there's just probably not enough resources out there to get everything done that needs to get done. I didn't hear any. I don't know. Maybe there was discussion of is there a general? Do we need to raise fees? Do we need to find other sources of revenue? Maybe we do. Maybe we don't. I don't know, and I don't know if that was something that was discussed and just not being reported on. And finally, I feel the same way I felt back in June. I feel like Palo Alto is a stakeholder in the noise issues at the airport. I think Portola Valley looks a lot more like Palo Alto in terms of our noise concerns than we do cities close to the airport. And I don't mean to make light of the issues at the airport. I think the ground noise issues there are probably worse. But the fact is, we do talk about departures and arrivals here. Palo Alto is very much a group that is a city that is affected by arrivals, as is Portola Valley. If the criteria really is just limiting this to the MOU area, to the county, then I think we should be very clear about that moving forward. If that's what this is going to be, I'm not sure I agree with it, but if that's the case, I think this group should just make that decision and put this to rest. And so again, I have supported Palo Alto's addition before. I support it now. I do thank the committee for your work. I know this is a lot of time and effort you put into it, so I do appreciate that. Those are my concerns with what we're hearing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I think next was Member Snyder from Millbrae.
Thank you, Chair. Going back historically for the new members, we did lose some city membership during tighter budgets. I think Half Moon Bay was one of those that then came back. I can't remember if Colma was one, but East Palo Alto was definitely a member of the Roundtable, and then during tight budgets had to drop out. And I know that I have been working with East Palo Alto and Colma to have them rejoin for years. And in Colma's sake, they're the gap departure. In East Palo Alto's sake, they are arrivals coming up the bay. But they are also one of our few communities that are absolutely recognized as a community of color, as a community of concern. And when you look at the tools that give us any power at all, of which we have almost none, to work on noise issues, the pollution that is dropped on those cities, including Foster City, as the airplanes come up the bay, are another tool in our toolkit. So again, this is not something new. This was not something done, at least in my book, because we've been working on it before our current staff. James was working on this. James and I were working on this at least 4 years ago, plus trying to make sure that Half Moon Bay remain on the Roundtable. And then just one comment, and I'm sure it wasn't intended that way. Millbrae has stayed out of this. Millbrae has done no formal communication or informal communication with Congressman Spears' office. So saying that some city up in the north wrote it for her, I would only say that the office has always had Kathleen Wentworth, a former pilot, and has the technical knowledge to draft those letters. Thank you.
Let's move on to Member Hindi from Foster City. Vice Chair
Thank
Hindi.
you. Thank you, Chair Ortiz. And let me start by thanking members of the public for their comments and also members of the Roundtable. Look, I hear the frustration and the members of the Palo Alto community because of the request being rejected once again. But I have to tell all of you that this issue was given serious consideration by the entire subcommittee. We had good discussions. We looked at every possibilities and we measured the impact and we evaluated the impact on the current roundtable members and what would happen if we open the door for expansion beyond the MOU. For me, it was really the biggest challenge for me was the criteria that fits Palo Alto, and I said that earlier in June, that definitely Palo Alto is highly impacted by next gen. That's a fact. No one is disputing that. But if I take that as a measure to whether to include Palo Alto, then I have to apply the same criteria, if you will, to other communities. And I could tell you with full confidence that communities as far as Santa Cruz has been highly impacted by next gen. So would that mean if we allow Palo Alto to join, this is not, I'm saying Palo Alto because Palo Alto was the one who submitted the letter to join and the members of the community advocating for Palo Alto to join. But it could apply to any other city, to any other community. And it really becomes challenging. How big would you have the roundtable? How are you able to function and run a meeting and with the expansion of who is being impacted by SFO? It's really a lot of communities beyond what we have in our membership. And I heard Palo Alto, members of the community advocating or proposing that the criteria could be contiguous, cities. But that also really is not fair because it's, if you will, it's tailored and custom to allow Palo Alto to get in, not everybody else's who is impacted. If we are dealing with noise, and if we say in this community is impacted by next gen noise, then why won't we let the other community that's as far as Santa Cruz be part of the roundtable as well? With that also, like I said, Palo Alto definitely has been highly impacted by next gen, but so has also members of this community roundtable as well. I mean, the level of noise exposure and noise pollution that happened post next gen is tremendous to all members in our roundtable. So it really wasn't, for me at least, nothing that I'm not dismissing or negating. I was one of those, if you remember, who was advocating to have the discussion, advocating to have the hearings and see if we can do this. But once we dove deeper into it, really there's a lot more things that we have to tackle. And for me, again, the biggest issue, how big can you get it? And if I'm thinking based on noise, there are more than Palo Alto and more than Mountain View that could be added. So those are my comments at this point. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Appreciate that. And I think, yeah, you put it very nicely. I think we did struggle with that is, again, how to open it up and limit the roundtable. And we're talking, you guys were thinking about flights of approaching airplanes, but there's also the flights of the impacts of departing airplanes. So we would have cities to the north that would say, well, we are impacted too. So, so we've considered that. So with that, I'll open up to Mr. Al Royce, who was one of the members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. First of all, I do want to thank Michelle and the staff for all the work they did. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and I know they did it under time constraints, so I do appreciate it. And I also want to thank the public. You heard some of their comments earlier. You did not hear some of the comments of people who opposed it, but they had some valid and some passionate comments too. But the comments that were made earlier made this a tough decision. And the comments made by some of the members of this committee illustrate the difficulty trying to decide where the boundaries ought to be and what their criteria ought to be. Sam said it much better than I could, so I don't want to repeat what he said, but I do want to highlight a couple of things. One, Council Member Whitmer, Jackie Spear, she may have had that letter written, but I do know for a fact, because she talked to me personally, that she feels pretty strongly about this issue. And it's exactly what she said in that letter. She is concerned that some of their communities may be overshadowed by stronger voices with greater resources, and they are most affected and they're not economically able to compete. That's a concern of hers. And she wanted that raised, a social equity issue. So while she may have had that letter written, I can assure you, I think she would stand by word, everything in it. Number two, I am still concerned about the funding. Councilmember Alpert, I think, made the comment with I'm sorry, I maybe got the name wrong here, made the comment about this being a major issue for this roundtable, and it is. But I'm not sure that adding members without adding resources and adding staff solves our problem. Remember, our membership fees are pretty nominal. They ought to be increased. But I understand in these economic times, there's opposition to that. I think we charge, is it $1,500 a member? It's not very much. And San Mateo County underwrites a significant portion of this. I think they contribute around $250,000 or 220,000 or something like that. Michelle, you can correct me, but it's a substantial amount of money.
And
I have
the
not
airport.
seen, I'm sorry?
The airport.
The airport does. And San Mateo County contributes a lot of staff and they contribute resources. And I have not heard Santa Clara County step up to the line and offer to contribute resources or staff. And maybe they will, but I haven't heard it yet. But the biggest problem I had, quite candidly, was where do you draw the boundaries? We had Palo Alto.
Al, I think you froze. I hope it's not me.
Am I okay now?
Yeah, you're okay now. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've been having internet problems all day. We've been having problems in Hillsborough.
We lost you at Santa Clara County has not offered to provide funding.
Well, and I guess the biggest concern I had is where do you draw the boundaries? Because we had Palo Alto request admission. We had Mountain View request permission. We've been told that Santa Cruz may well want to request admission. We've heard other cities, Los Altos Hills. Where do you draw? Because I can make an argument that decisions that we make affect every one of those communities. I can make an argument that every one of them are impacted by noise from San Francisco Airport. I can make the argument that they can add resources and input and knowledge just as Palo Alto can. So where do you draw the boundaries? And that became the issue for me. If we want to make this committee, this roundtable, a regional committee, then let's do so and let's open it up. But I don't think we want to do so. I think we want to keep it in a format that we can govern and we can manage and we can act on. Colma and Half Moon Bay, yes, they're already members of the county. They meet the membership criteria already. They were members in the past. They dropped out for reasons and we wanted them back. But that doesn't get to the issue of do we expand well beyond the boundaries of the county. And so it came down to me, where do you draw the boundary? And I'm not comfortable that we can add a member outside the county, the boundary lines, and then stop it there and be fair to everybody else. So, bottom line, this committee went into it with, I think, 6 out of the 7 or 5 of the 7 supporting it. They came out with 6 of the 7 opposing it. That should tell you something. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Royce, and thank you for your participation. I see Mr. Adiego, who has a lot of history to bring.
Well, I'm not, thank you, Charities. I'm not going to go too far back, but just remembering when the select committee was hosting meetings in different counties. And really from that time forward to now, the focus has been on Next Gen. And Next Gen primarily impacted arrivals. So that really spoke in San Mateo County's situation to mostly the south and the central. And Member Hamilton from San Bruno, I'm so glad that your community is engaged again with your membership. And I'm greatly looking forward to Colma engaging, because really the North County, the departure side of the equation has been pretty quiet for a very long time. And I think we need to get back to work, because as I sat in these committee meetings, looking at the potential of bringing on a new member with a focus that, again, was more South County and arrivals, I recognize that I've been deferring since Next Gen to rival questions and a little bit to ground-based noise, which we need to ramp up. And I've been neglecting my community. And I'm not sure I should stay on that page much longer. So I'm looking forward to Colma joining and an active Daly City in San Bruno. And I need a little bit more time at the meetings, Charities.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Raise your hand, sir. I'll call on you.
Okay.
Chair Ortiz, we have one hand raised from member Di Giovanni as well.
Okay, I see a member O'Connell. I see her hand, and then I will go to member Di Giovanni right after that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. For me on the subcommittee, I came in as a dissenting vote to start, and I was the only truly dissenting vote. and short term to change our MOU and go through that process, the legal and financial process of doing that would divert our resources for probably at least a year, maybe more, before that process could be really addressed. And that's a big thing. We don't have a year to waste. And I shouldn't say it's wasted because, you know, it may not be, but that's one of my thoughts. And then also, you know, the North County and the departures area, as Member Adiego said, has been waiting our turn patiently for departure noise. And departure noise is much louder, much more intrusive than arrival noise. Anybody who's been on a plane knows that. As you're coming down, you are not creating the same kind of noise as you are when you're landing, as you are when you're departing. There's so much more energy used, and energy is noise. So I don't think that adding the cities that were historically in our MOU are the drain on resources that may be for adding new cities and changing our entire structure. So Colma and East Palo Alto, yes, they should be able to join with limited staff and financial costs to this group. And so I do agree that they should be allowed to join. And I think a lot of the concerns that Palo Alto has will be mirrored in some respect by East Palo Alto's concerns. And so I think we might be able to address some of the impacts of Palo Alto through East Palo Alto's participation. And then as a roundtable itself, over the last couple of years with the portables, we have been more than willing to get to place those portables into Palo Alto so that we can get good data and that we can try to invest, in realize what those noise impacts are and how we as a group can address those and that the airport can address them. So, looking at this, I feel that we still need to really look at our departure noise. I think that's one of our original mandates. And the maps that were shared with us, while they were very broad overviews, the major differences in 2013 to 2019 were the amount of flights. It wasn't the path. It wasn't the deviations. It was the amount of flights because people are flying more. And the reason we looked at those years was that, we didn't want to look at COVID years because that wouldn't be true data. And when we get back to post-pandemic, God willing, flight patterns, everyone, including departures, arrivals, and ground-based noise, is going to be more severely impacted. So I really stand by my decision to make this recommendation. And I think that we also need to look at why the Santa Clara, Santa Cruz Roundtable was not successful in sustainability and why that county's financial resources were removed. Their reasons for basically not being able to continue. And I think those might be enlightening. So thank you. And I hope that you will support the recommendation from the subcommittee.
Thank you, Member O'Connell. And with that, we'll go to the Member DiGiovanni.
Thank you, Chair. As someone that obviously is connected Daly City and Colma, and as everyone addresses, but first let me just say thank you to the committee. Thank you to all the due diligence everyone did. I know it's not easy, and it's just like anything else, any other decisions we make as electeds or members who take it very seriously. We look at everything first before we make a decision. So that'll respect all the members of the board, the public. But I have to say, again, being connected to Colma and had asked Colma several times, please come back because we share that airspace and the departure. And I mean, I'm like a half a block right now from Colma. So I know and I hear it, I see it. So I have to advocate on that departure side and welcome them back as well. And say we also starting to share a lot of our diverse community, which is our beautiful Asian and beautiful Latino communities, which is also expanding into Colma. So in that respect as well, that is another criteria that we need to recognize that and give them their due and have their representations and their voices heard as well. And really thank everyone for welcoming East Palo Alto back as well, which has a diverse community, and our communities of color is so important. So with that, I just wanted to chime in and say welcome back and look forward to that we can finally get to that departure and everybody else's issues. I think we're all connected in this world, and we're here for a reason. And I'm very humbled and honored to serve with all of you. And thank you very much. And thank you for your time, Chair. And thank you to the board.
Thank you, Member DiGiovanni. And just to be clear for everybody, the East Palo Alto is not a member at this point, and I don't think there have been conversations to go in that direction. But again, they are within their boundaries, so they would not require any sort of MOU amendment. So I see Mr. Widmer has some afterthoughts.
Yeah, I took the time to go back and look at how many complaints we're getting out of Colma. The last two reports in here, their name isn't even listed. So I
That's
guess
because the airport is not required to list them because they're not members. They do the reports for us.
Well, unfortunately, they list all these other towns. And so I've got to assume that if there was a substantial number, they got Aptos, Boulder Creek, Los Gatos, many other locations. Okay, so we're listing all of them. But Colma's not there. I know that those dead people probably aren't putting in too many reports, but for the majority of the people that are essentially there. But I don't see, and I haven't seen, going backwards, seeing Colma listed as making a bunch of reports. So look, I have no issue with it. I voted for it, okay? But making a big deal about Colma with those issues, I just don't see that that's the case. And so I'll shut up about it. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Hamilton, you had afterthought yourself.
Yes, I think it's important to say, just since Member Winder said the same thing, I also am supportive of Colma. I just voted for it and supportive of them being a member. I just wanted to take a moment to thank Member O'Connell for her comments, because the whole dilution of resources and spending of time and all of that, all the comments in reading them had been focused on, and the way I was interpreting them was the work of the roundtable going forward in perpetuity would be diluted by adding a member. Nowhere in here really was it clearly spelled out that the work of having to go and amend the MOU is going to be a bunch of work. It's a more short-term diversion, but that would dilute our limited staff in order to do that, and that is a powerful argument. But that was not clearly made in the recommendations. So I just wanted to point that out and thank Member O'Connell for pointing that out.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. I think that was an important point that Member O'Connell made. Member Snyder, you had afterthoughts yourself.
I'm going to go back to the comment about the number of noise complaints. Now, in Colma's case, there's probably an airplane that you could assign a complaint to, but under the old system, not so sure about the new system, if they cannot track a plane to a noise complaint, the complaint is dropped. In addition, watching the people of Palo Alto or Kensington or Santa Cruz that have come to the roundtable since I joined in 2016 and hearing their frustration, we all hear it. For all of you, the community out there, we hear it and have had no power to do or very little power to do anything. It hurts. I know it's hurting you. It is hurting us. But what I have not done is ask my community to start filing complaints, because I'm only going to get them upset. So the number of noise complaints is not a true reflection of what people are experiencing. If you like, I can start doing that in January, but until there's a solution or even a pathway to a solution, why make people upset for something that they cannot change? That's the frustration of ground-based noise. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I see Bert, Mr. Gnark from the San Francisco Noise Office that has his hand raised. Bert, if you'd like to comment. And Terry, I see you. I'll get back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did want to definitely state that all noise reports that we receive are reported, whether it is correlated to an aircraft or not.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Member O'Connell.
I just wanted to interject one further comment. During our subcommittee reports, we did talk about funding and the need for additional funding, but we did feel, and we directed staff that would be something to bring up at our next strategic planning session to look at funding enhancements. So that was looked at, that we are chronically underfunded and that we need to have more participation from our member communities, and that may require increasing our dues or finding some other funding source. But at this point, we didn't feel it was within our boundaries to really look at exactly how much work needed to be done until it went through the strategic planning process. So that is something that staff was directed to and towards, and we came up with the recommendation that it should be handled at the next planning and strategic to look at our next year's going forward planning. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for that. And if there are no other comments, I don't see any raised hands. So if there are no additional comments, I would entertain a motion to approve the subcommittee's recommendation.
I would be privileged to make that recommendation, that we approve the subcommittee's recommendation.
And I will entertain a second.
I will make the second, Chair Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Diego. So we have a motion by Member O'Connell, second by Member Diego. If we could have a roll call, please.
And really quick before the roll call, I would like to point out that we did, Member Deborah Rodek did join the meeting at the beginning of this item. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Member Rodek.
City and County of San Francisco Airport Commission.
No.
Thank you. Town of Atherton.
No.
City of Belmont.
Abstain.
Thank you. City of Brisbane.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yes.
City of Burlingame.
Yes.
City of Daly City.
Aye.
Thank you. City of Foster City.
Yes.
Thank you. The City of Half Moon Bay.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Hillsborough.
Yes.
Thank you. The City of Pacifica.
Yes.
The City of Millbrae.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Portola Valley.
No.
Thank you. City of Redwood City.
Yes.
City of San Bruno.
No.
Thank you. City of San Carlos.
Yes.
Thank you. City of South San Francisco.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Woodside.
Abstain.
With the 2 abstention, the motion does not pass.
Good. Thank you, everyone.
I'm not clear now what you want to do with that next.
Ricardo, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was saying some really brilliant stuff. So I'm not sure what we do next. So I guess we could entertain a different motion and we could vote on a different motion, or we could just table this because really I'm not sure. Go ahead.
Linda, what are you saying with the abstentions? Linda also has a comment on the abstentions.
Okay.
Would that vote make a difference on passing?
Yes.
1 vote.
I will change my vote to yes.
Who's that speaking, please?
That is John Carvel.
I was an abstention.
Thank you. Then your motion passes.
Okay. So with that, then we will, Mr. Whitmer, I see you have even a further afterthought.
Well, you said I'm not sure what we should do next, and I was going to suggest that we go back to the original discussion that was raised by Portola Valley that kicked this whole thing off, and focus in on that. But since Woodside changed their mind, it's a moot point. Thank you for
Thank you for your comment. Okay, so with that, the motion passes, and we will now move on to item number 6, which is the chairman's update, and I do have a few items. I want to first remind members or ask members of the roundtable that when sending communications to airport officials, FAA or otherwise, to be very crystal clear on who you're representing, and make sure that that it's crystal clear that you are not representing the roundtable unless it's been approved by the membership or by the myself or whoever the chair is at the time. We have had communications that were, I would say, ambiguous on what capacity the writer was sending them in. And I just want to ask everybody to be please very, very careful. We do have some relationships that I like to protect. That I think it's important that we're careful with our communications. With that, I'll move to, we are celebrating our 40th anniversary as a roundtable, which I think is a very big event or big accomplishment. We see how in other communities, their roundtables have not been able to grow, and we've been able to keep it up for 40 years. That is a huge accomplishment, and I think it needs to be celebrated. However, we do have some restrictions right now as far as in-person celebration. So we have decided to delay that celebration. And so hopefully next year, Omicron willing, we are able to do it in person and we can do a nice little get together. So I'm looking forward to doing that next year. But I just want to congratulate everybody and those who've been members for a long time on what a great accomplishment that is, because we've not only survive, but we thrive. So thank you. Now, I've been told by Michelle also that the San Mateo County Council has requested from the FPPC that they reconsider their determination that Roundtable is a public agency. And the reason that's important is because it forces all of us to file an additional Form 700. Most of us file it, or we all file it with the cities, and some of us have to file it with the regional boards that we belong to. This would be an additional Form 700, and we're trying to avoid that. Michelle, did you have anything else on that?
Just that our request for reconsideration is being considered. We will give you more detail at the February roundtable. We think by then we'll know it. But even if they did make that determination, it wouldn't be until the next 2022, because it'll take us some time to comply anyway. So not to worry at this point.
Very good. Does anybody in the membership have any questions or any thoughts on what I just said?
Did you want to update them on the technical working group?
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that one. So technical working group. Yeah, we met with the technical working group and had, it was primarily a Gbass conversation. We had presentations on some of the innovative approaches that are very encouraging because I think many things that were said, and I think you'd have to get into the nitty gritty to understand it, but their consultant was fabulous. He did a great presentation, and we decided to focus on the innovative approaches that do not show any change in noise or do not show any increase in noise, only reductions in noise or that stay the same. And so somebody needs to mute it. Anyway, so we had some great presentations, and then HMMH will start reviewing some of those innovative approaches, and we report back to us for the next technical working group. And then with that, yeah, now I'll open it up to membership and see if there's any questions or any thoughts. Anyone who's in the technical working group, if you would like to comment on some of the outcomes, I think, and I think especially for our friends from the South Bay, these innovative approaches will have some impacts on your community. So when we talk about our focus, I think the Gbass will primarily impact arrivals, and I think that's a good thing for some of our friends in the South. Any thoughts from the membership? Mr. Widmer.
Sure. Sorry to monopolize the time. I thought that the presentations that we've had and the maps that were shown were excellent, and I appreciate the staff coming back and putting those things together. I thought they were very, very helpful. So I thought they were very productive meetings, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitman. Thank you for participating. Vice Chair, I see your hand raised.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add to your report, I think one point that we made clear during the discussion and the technical working group was that we want to make sure no matter what procedure is being developed, not to have any noise shifting from one community to another. So that was an important point that we have made. I think the public and members would like to make sure that they do that, understand that this is goes part of the what the roundtable has decided at prior time, that no noise shifting will happen to any procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Now that is very important. That is one of the basic tenets of the roundtable, is that we would not support anything that has noise shifting, which is why some of the innovative approaches that had or appear to have any noise shifting, we've put in the back burner until we can address some of that and kind of understand that a little better. But we are moving forward with ones that don't have it, or who have that show actually a reduction in noise, which was a number of them. So thank you to the airport staff for that presentation. It was wonderful. Any other comments from members? Having none, we will move on to our item number 7, San Francisco Airport Commission update. And I think it's our airport director, Mr. Sardaro.
Right, thanks, Chair. A couple updates. First is regarding traffic at the airport. We did see a pretty strong Thanksgiving weekend, all things considered, with the virus, and our largest numbers to date of about 50,000 outbound passengers. We passed that threshold first time since the start of the pandemic. That still puts us at about 60% of our pre-pandemic volumes and behind almost all other large hub airports in the US. Apologies, someone chose to print while I'm talking. Next is about international traffic recovery. We do have some new airlines and returning airlines, and the ones resuming service is French Bee to Papeete, and they'll operate 6 days a week, and they will fly arriving at 5:15, departing at 7:45. Fiji Airways to Nadi 5 days a week, arriving at 12:45, departing at 10. Aer Lingus to Dublin, operating 5 days a week, arriving at 3:25, departing at 7:30. Qantas announcing plans to resume flights to Sydney and Brisbane in March, and we have yet to confirm times. And you know what we'll do, instead of going through this, we'll just publish a report so I don't have to read these out each time, and we'll make sure that this is included in the packet. We do have some new airlines. Vietnam Airlines announced their first flight direct nonstop to the US, and it started at SFO this week. And I will say it arrives at 7:30 and departs at 11. We have a Canadian low-cost carrier, Flair, announcing plans to launch service at SFO as well. Edmonton, and it'll operate at 5:10 to 6 o'clock. 5:10 arriving, 6 o'clock departure in the evening. And then 3 times a week to Vancouver, also arriving 8:30 a.m. and departing at 9:15 a.m. And then Air Transat also announcing plans to launch to Montreal, arriving at 10:20 p.m., departing at 11:40 p.m. We're closely monitoring Omicron variant and following the US government's actions related to that and the travel bans from countries, South Africa and a number of other countries in the African continent. We have been participating in a pilot program with CDC to track new COVID variants that may enter the US. We are rechanneling this to also look at those countries that may be a source of this new variant, and the testing that we're doing, that CDC is doing in partnership, is also able to discover and detect the Omicron variant. We're also looking at relaunching with the California Department of Public Health a testing of all arriving international passengers voluntarily. So we'll be reinstituting that. That did exist prior to, I think it was towards the middle part of the year, they suspended that, but that will be reinitiated. We continue to offer vaccines at the airport. All on-site personnel, we put out an operations bulletin requiring all on-site personnel of the 30,000 employees, and we have about a 90% compliance with that. We continue to offer boosters at the airport. 2 more clinics coming up to the general public, December 22nd and January 14th, and you can visit flysfo.com for more details. Gbass, a lot of discussion about Gbass. Really appreciate the public comments around the first round of innovative procedures. We are still remain committed to this program. We know that the initial findings don't provide significant enough improvements, but really this is a long game with Gbass, and we know there's a number of phases to go through. So we remain committed to this, and we're optimistic that it will have a benefit to the community. And again, we do that commitment. We maintain that commitment of no noise shifting and no increased impact to any community. And then, continue to be concerned about the Tanforan development that's going on. 3,100 homes within a 70 dB noise contour is certainly troubling. There's no place else in the US that is proposing such a development. And we know housing is a critical issue for us, and we certainly want to work together to look at what some of the options are. But we do have meetings coming up with San Bruno on this, and we'll continue to discuss it. But we really think this does not set up the residents for success with this kind of development. And in fact, some of the big aircraft will fly within 900 feet overflight of that development. And let's see, and I'll just finish with, this roundtable, it's a huge milestone. I look forward to an in-person celebration, our 40th anniversary. It has really set a standard for engagement of communities and airports, and really proud of the work that's been done and the ability to have those difficult conversations and disagree, but at the end of the day, all be focused on working together in partnership and finding solutions that affect the communities. But one other thing, let me say that we've announced today, there's in our efforts to continue to drive sustainable aviation fuel, and we've really taken a leadership position for the past 4 years. There was an announcement today of our One World Airline Alliance, 14 airlines committing to 350 million gallons of SAF over the next, starting in 2004, over the next 7 years. So when you talk about a real moving the lever in terms of particulate matter and greenhouse gas emissions, this is a really significant step and helps us achieve our goals. And they chose SFO because of the leadership that we've shown over the last several years. So we're pleased and with that action. I would be glad to answer any questions. And then after that, we'll go to Bert.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Director. And any questions for Mr. Sardaro? Mr. Widmer.
Sure. With the announcement that a Omicron variant did arrive in late November in San Francisco, I assume that we're doing contact tracing. Have there been any additional findings, people that get tested? At least that got announced today.
Yeah, there is testing required that will start up, and it's within 1 day of travel for all inbound. Thanks for bringing that up, Bill. All inbound international travelers, and that'll be the responsibility. And whether you have a vaccination or not, you'll be required to have a test. And that will be the obligation of the airlines to confirm they have the test. Anyone coming from the banned countries is rejected if they happen to get on a flight that arrives, and they will be rejected by the Customs and Border Protection.
But with the individual that got here, I believe it was the 29th of November, is the airport, or is it up to the state to do all the contact tracing to find out who that scientist met with, and are there any additional variants?
The contact tracing is done by the Department of Public Health.
Okay.
I don't know which Department of Public Health, or whether that was Cal or whether that was one of the counties.
Okay, so I would assume that your people that also are meeting them at the airport are going to be included in that as well.
We are included. Any airport employees that are defined as close contact, or any airport passengers defined as close contact, are also part of the contact tracing.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the airport director? And having no hands raised, Terry O'Connell, see you.
And this might not be the right place, but I know that we had quite a few comments about the new Anem program. And I am hoping that we can set up some sort of outreach for our members and for the public on what the new Anem process will mean for our communities, and how we can interpret that data and what kind of information will be able to provide for us. So
thanks, Terry. Glad to do that. Yeah, thank you.
It's a comment and hopefully a future outcome.
Might be a good topic for our technical working group. So we can talk about that. I think that would be great. So with that, I guess we are going now to Mr. Ganag from the noise abatement office. Are you with us? You're muted.
Carrie Giovanni also has her hand raised.
Oh, well, let's see. While Bert sorts out his mute button, member Di Giovanni. Pamela, you there?
I'm here. I apologize. I had my hand up. I apologize.
I'm sorry.
No, nothing to say.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, Bert.
Sorry.
He's alive.
Oh, it was definitely alive. It was just Zoom shrunk all of a sudden, and it was like, oh no. So yes, I do have something on Anem for us this evening. Let me see if I can get our presentation up and running for us. We had quite a lengthy one, and we shortened it just before the meeting. So please bear with me as we go. And let me see if I can go ahead and get the proper one up for you folks. There we are. So and I believe you're all able to see my screen now.
Got
There
it.
we are. So on this one, we wanted to talk about our noise insulation program real quick. We have a 5-year summary on the screen here, and the reason for it is we wanted to make sure that we wanted to show how we're doing the Second Chance Initiative as well as the Replacement Initiative, looking at the 5 years on it, the different grants that we had for it. It's a lot of very dense information, but the real quick summary on it is here we are today. We're getting ready to kick off a bunch of grants that will add quite a few homes to the program. And it's far more than we've done in years past. So by the time we reach the end of the 5-year span, we'll have over 700 homes through the mitigation program, which is a real hats off to my colleagues in the noise insulation program to doing an outstanding job. And I want to thank the airport director for putting the onus on us to get this program really going into full year. Looking at the current noise insulation program for the current fiscal year, what we're seeing here is that we have 55 homes completed, roughly $4.1 million. Through the pilot contract, we had 19 homes. In the 2019 grant, we had the 36 homes. Next, we'll see April 22. We'll have over 100 homes completed at $11.2 million. And then towards the end of fiscal year 21-22, we'll see that we have had the amount of homes reach 130 plus. Jumping into our Gbass update real quick, wanted to let everybody know there was some mention earlier about the way we were talking about the program and the way the procedures, sorry, and how we looked at them. And we decided we group them up and make it color coded so that we could look at the process and we could see better how the green would show those that modeled noise reduction. The uncolored or white show modeled neutral noise. And the yellow would be procedure packets that modeled noise reduction with some small noise increases. The project goals category is a way that we show what's met. We're talking about the noise reduction with the microphone, redundancy for the ILS system, the instrument landing system is the 2 gears, the efficiency or recycling logo there. And then the clock talks about reducing delays. And people might initially kick back on that one, but I want to point out that delay reduction is good. If we keep the flights more towards their normal arrival and departure times, we don't have the issues of flights going later into the evening. And so this will be is a tool that we have shared with the Roundtable for helping with the decisions. Again, we have 6 portable noise monitoring sites, 12 permanent sites that we've identified to measure the noise for the upcoming United Airlines flights with the innovative approaches and the baseline flights. The reports, once we've completed those, will be made available at the link below. We're going to continue to seek the approval on the 14 innovative flight procedures. And we're looking forward to wrapping up the noise monitoring in mid-December. The team's looking forward to having the comments given back to them at the sfo.gbass at flysfo.com. And skipping rapidly into our noise app update, we promised that we would take what we had in the beginning, at the beginning of the year, actually end of last year, moved in through this year, and we have up online right now a noise app that does mimic a lot of the item, well, not mimic, does have a lot of the items that were asked for and some that weren't. So on the first screen, you can see the submit report. That's the submit now buttons. You can go right to a low, loud, speed brakes, ground-based noise, excessively loud. And then below that, you'll see your last 5 reports. The next screen over, we're talking about the ability to do your reports, identifies the user right away by saying hello. And then you can make what you'd like in the way of changes. And then anything you do select in there will stick. So aircraft sounds, type of aircraft, noise interrupted that type of thing. All those are there. And then under the history, you can see what type of reports have been filed over time. The graph down below, the pie chart, I guess, or donut, is going to be able to show you what you've been reporting on. And then the following history, you'll be able to see a direct link to the SFO noise portal where you can go and read the curated reports, information about what we've gathered together under a noise portal for folks. The aircraft icon allows a person to, based on a report that they filed, click on that. It'll jump you straight into WebTrack, and then you can see the flights that might have been the offending flights for you. And then the history of noise reports allows the user to view their own submittals. Okay, for our last portion, Anem. This is a rather large section, but we've compressed it down for everybody. It's not a noise metric. I want to first state that. It's a method of matching aircraft flight tracks and noise. So what we have is the original methodology we use, which is called noise to track. Fairly simple, noise event, flight track, and it matches them. Relatively simple old technology. We moved over to noise power distance, which sort of takes the threshold based portion of noise to track and the newer methodology, which has actually been out for a while now, but has been really refined and to the point where we want to use it and are using it on our portable monitors at this current time. It's called Anem, Aircraft Noise Event Extraction Methodology. And what it does is it takes a noise event in the community noise. And so if you looked at it graphically, you would see a line graph with the sawtooth, like a EKG, basically a heart scan. And so as the aircraft noise events get closer and closer into the community, this allows for the system to do a smart matching where it will go in, take that aircraft type that it believes is it, will then show a modeled contour for it and say, okay, this matches that. And I can go ahead and extract it from the community noise, which is the beauty of it. The noise vendor that we have, EnviroSuite, has on their website some information about Anem. I also have a PDF of a document they created on Anem for us that we'll go ahead and share with the roundtable for posting. And then one of the big questions has been, well, what are we going to see in the director's report to reflect this? It's kind of hard to see, but in the graph, you can see the asterisks by the numbered sites. Those would be the Anem sites. Those would be the sites that are not considered Title 21 sites. We still have to use that for the threshold detection in and near the contour. And that's the reason for those that are not ostracized, not ostracized, but ostracized and put in that way. And then you can see here graphically, the green are the ones that will be the Anem sites. Blue will be the ones that remain under the NPD, a noise power distance methodology, which, like I said, is a mid-ground between the two. And so we're hoping for the good results that we were seeing initially during our look. The 17 permanent sites will be the ones that have the Anem, and the 12 sites NPD will be used to meet the Title 21, as I mentioned. And then in January of 22, we're going to start applying that to all sites, even though the portable sites currently have the application applied to them. And back to you, Mr. Chair, for any questions.
And with that, I did have, Michelle, did you have something you wanted to say?
After the San Francisco Airport update and
Okay.
part of member communication.
Very good. I will stop it in the middle there. I see Member Schneider has her hand raised.
Thank you, Chair. If possible, it would be nice to have an update of Anem as it relates to low frequency noise at a future ground-based noise meeting. On that, I brought that up at working group 2 weeks ago. My other question then is, in all of these reports, Bert, where do they report out the duration and frequency? Where does duration and frequency come in? And then where do the run-ups fit in? Because the run-ups seem to be happening later and later at night and are longer and louder, although that could be because of atmospheric conditions.
We do have well, let me back up a bit. As far as duration, those aren't reported in any of our reports. We'd have to look at that for specific events. As far as ground run-up, we do have a ground run-up system out in the airfield. We're in the process of fine-tuning it right now so that we can be reporting on that. And with that, I would like to work that into a workable report for the roundtable so that you could actually visibly see what's going on with our run-ups and how long they are. We do report those in the director's report, and the return of flight activity is going to mean that we may see more of those.
And thank you for that. But the problem in the current director's report is it simply lists a number. It doesn't go on to say, like, what I have been experiencing are 20 minutes of high frequency and low frequency noise that's constant, along with all of the departure noise at the same time. So there's an accumulation of multiple noise sources on that. But I look forward to you bringing it back. And my residents would like to know when these run-ups are and why they have to be in the middle of the night. I understand that's probably when the plane finishes their updates or maintenance at the maintenance facility, but they are becoming more frequent and longer and louder.
Per rules and regulations, the aircraft are not allowed to do run-ups at night unless they are departing prior to, I believe it's 9 a.m. And if the flight's departing in the daytime, they have to do run-up during the daytime.
Well, I'm sure my community would appreciate all run-ups during the daytime.
Okay, so do we have any other questions from members? I don't see any hands raised. Michelle, do you want your comments before or after the public comment?
I think it should be before public comment.
Perfect. Okay, so then please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I reviewed the bylaws on the vote, and I wanted to just make sure that our bylaws are clear that approval of an action item requires a majority of the membership present, and we have 17 members present, which means we needed 9 votes for a majority, and we have 12 now with Town of Woodside changing from abstention, and so we could still pass with him back at extension because all we needed was 9 votes. So I wanted to just give that opportunity, and we had 12 with his vote in.
Okay, so to be clear, the way we were counting it initially was compared to the total membership versus compared to the members present.
Correct.
And with comparing it to the total membership with the abstentions and the absences, it didn't pass, but the real vote should be the majority of the members present. So that's correct. So we do have that. Mr. Carvel, if you so wish, your vote no longer makes that difference. So if you wish to go back to abstention, this is your opportunity.
I would, in that I believe that some points raised by the people who said no were valid points. However, I wasn't going to override the subcommittee and send them back to the drawing board. I did want to state that I have been a resident of Palo Alto, and I've been a resident of Burlingame, and so I can speak to living in both places, even though I'm now living in Woodside. So I did want to state that it's, and also in the eastern part of Menlo Park. So I can relate to those communities, but I will, if it can move forward without my change of vote, then I will keep it there, recognize as abstention, recognizing some of the points made on both sides.
Very, very good. And I'm sorry you left Burlingame.
That a great community, as are all of them.
Good. Okay. Thank you for that, Michelle. And then now we're going to open it to members of the public to comment on the presentations. With that, I'll hand it over to Ms. Montes.
Thank you, Chairman Ortiz. And I would just like to remind members of the public, you may press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. And I do have one hand raised, and that is by caller ending in 204. I believe that is Miss Mary Jo Fremont. So give me 1 second. Miss Fremont?
Mary Jo Fremont. My first comment is on Anem. Thank you to the airport for stepping up and for adopting a much better noise monitoring methodology for the non-Title 21 monitors, temporary or permanent. What's ironic is that this happened because 2 Palo Alto residents worked with Peter Grace to make it happen. It took a few years. It did not happen because of this roundtable. It happened because of 3 residents, without 2 of them without representation on this roundtable, and because of SFO's leadership and collaborative spirit. I wish we had more collaboration from other members of this roundtable. My second comment is on Gbass. It's also pretty ironic that this roundtable is going to approve or disapprove Gbass approaches that will mainly affect communities outside this roundtable, including Palo Alto, among others. If they affect cities outside San Francisco and San Mateo counties, then these Gbass approaches must be regional in nature. However, didn't we just hear that regional issues are beyond the scope of this roundtable? So I therefore ask you, who or what gives you the qualification to approve or disapprove changes for other cities beyond the boundaries of what I will now call your county club? In another reference to 1776 tonight, it's like a king or queen telling people what's good or bad for them. Thank you.
And I think I'd like to just clarify that what the chairperson had said was that the Gbass alternatives that we're looking at are no net increase in noise and no noise shifting is what we're looking at. So there's some confusion there.
And I just also want to clarify that some of these conversations, some of these issues that were raised, especially about Gbass, we have provided a forum for members of the communities of Palo Alto and other cities that are affected to voice their opinions. And some of these changes were made because of their opinions that were voiced in this forum. So I do think we provide a value to those communities. Back to you, Ms. Montes.
Thank you, Chairman Ortiz. I will now call on Ms. Liz Lopez.
Yes, hi. I have a question about noise shifting and the possible noise shifting that will happen with Gbass. I hear the term a lot, noise shifting, and we won't shift noise, but I've never heard the roundtable define what noise shifting is, especially in writing. I've never seen it, and I have asked before, but I've never gotten a response. So I know that I know this is going to be an issue with Gbass, and so I think it'd be important for all the members to know what noise shifting is and what it isn't. And I think the definition changes over time, and I think it's flexible. So it's not a defined term. And so that's my question. And I hope that you guys actually define the term noise shifting and not just expect that everybody knows what it means because we have an idea of what it means in our mind. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Lopez. That's a really good point.
And I think just clarifying in your packet is the adopted resolution on this topic that defines noise shifting. If Ms. Lopez does not have it, if I can have her email, I'll send her the resolution.
Thank you. I do have Ms. Lopez email, so I can we can send that to her. She has. And Chairman, with that, we do not have any more hands raised from members of the public.
Okay, so members, any last comments from any member? And having none, then I will move on to item number 9, which is adjournment. I just want to thank you all. I know we've disagreed on this item, and I think we've had some good conversation. I think that I'm pleased the way it turned out. I know some of you are not, and I look forward to, please reach out. And I'd love to have a conversation with each one of you, and we can go over some of our thought process. And with that, I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and good night.
All right, thank you.
Happy holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy
Take
holidays.
care.
Happy holidays.
Good.